Instant Ramen is one of the most equipped consumable items on the Earth server. Its high pick rate is boosted by early game classes, such as the college student build. For its low gold cost, level 1 cooking ability, and its 400 calories of energy, it is extremely meta for players who need an energy boost quick and cost effectively. However, most players see its price tag and hunger restoration value, and they immediately close the inspection window, fixated on the short-term benefits of consistently running it in their loadout. And the developers of this item were counting on that, as within Ramen's item description lay hidden debuffs that stack over time if your loadout isn't rotated. So let's dive into these hidden metrics one by one, starting with the hook stat, which measures in at 88. A consumable's hook rating measures how well it keeps a player coming back for more, specifically how effectively it suppresses the internal signals that tell you you're full. And Ramen contains 3 components that all target the system simultaneously. Mechanic 1, MSG, monosodium glutamate. It activates glutamate receptors in your build's sensory system and triggers a dopamine passive effect before the item has even been processed in your body. Mechanic 2, TBHQ, tertiary butyl hydroquinone, used to extend the time it takes ramen to despawn by preventing its low-tier fat contents from spoiling. This runs in the background as a hidden passive that may blunt your satiety signals, the notifications that pop up to tell you the hunger bar is full, keeping you eating past the point where you'd naturally stop. Mechanic 3, 1,520 milligrams of sodium across the full package. 66% of your build's daily sodium allowance in a single consumable item. The sodium pushes flavor intensity so far above your calibrated baseline that every other consumable starts feeling underwhelming by comparison. It's the same reason players who regularly equip processed items report that whole foods start tasting bland. The item has quietly recalibrated your reward threshold. These 3 mechanics don't just stack, they synergize. MSG makes the sodium hit harder. The sodium makes MSG more effective. And TBHQ keeps the whole system shelf stable for 2 years. And when cycling this item over a long period of time, you risk accumulating the stackable inflammation debuff, which leads our analysis to the next stat. Ramen's damage level clocks in at 78, and this is where we need to talk about the difference between burst damage and damage over time. Burst damage is immediately visible. Damage over time runs as a passive in the background, ticking away at your stats every session without any visible health bar movement. Ramen's damage type is entirely in the second category. Refined seed oils, palm, cottonseed, canola are used to flash cook the noodle block into an easily portable and shelf-stable block. However, that process generates oxidation byproducts that drive systemic inflammation with every usage. The sodium load of 1,520 milligrams triggers an inflammatory response in the bloodstream within 2 hours of consumption. Your immune system reads that sodium spike the same way it reads a minor physical threat. Cortisol releases, blood pressure climbs, fluid retention activates. None of these debuffs feel like damage, but they're all running and stacking silently. The builds taking the most damage from this item are the ones who never check their stat sheet, because on a day-to-day basis, nothing feels wrong. That's the design, and regular consumption can lead to more permanent late-game debuffs like hypertension or diabetes. And on the topic of blood sugar, Ramen's agility rating clocks in at 82. In our system, high agility is actually a debuff. It means the item causes a blood sugar spike so fast and sharp that a player's energy system can't stabilize around it. Instant ramen noodles are made from refined wheat flour with almost zero dietary fiber. Fiber is the governor on your glucose absorption rate. Strip it out, and you get a blood sugar spike that hits within 15 to 20 minutes of consumption and crash lands around the 45-minute mark alongside your energy levels. And here's where the game design gets interesting. The AGI debuff and the hook passive are running a coordinated mechanic. The crash generates a hunger signal. The hook makes sure that hunger signal leads to another consumption of the item. This creates a requeue loop directly into its own crash cycle. And when you consider Ramen's high toxicity stat of 75, regular consumption becomes even more dangerous to the longevity of the average player. TBHQ is a petroleum-derived preservative, 10 points. The noodles contain a phosphate stack, sodium monophosphate, hexametaphosphate, and tryptophospate. That's 3 synthetic mineral compounds in the same item, netting another 10 points. Palm oil flash frying generates oxidized lipid byproducts that stack on the damage score and contribute here too. Add this to the MSG adjacent flavor enhancer stacks disodium inosinate and disodium guanylate, which are hydrolyzed proteins acting as free glutamate sources, and the natural flavors black box, and you're well past 70 before you get to any potential heavy metal residues. None of these toxic passives are high damage in a single session. The toxicity score is a chronic passive. It measures the cumulative load your system is processing every time you equip this item across a full playthrough. It's the difference between 1 raid and 100 raids, but surviving the damage is only half the battle. A build is only as good as its fuel efficiency, which brings us to the most deceptive stat. Stamina. And stats like these are where many low-level players get confused, as on the surface, 380 calories per pack of dense carbohydrate load sounds like it should generate a meaningful level of stamina. The problem is where those calories come from. 2 grams of fiber, 8 grams of low-quality protein, 0 healthy fat to slow digestion. What looks like a stamina item performs like a sprint consumable with a hard stop. For the first 30 minutes post-equip, the item does what it says. After that, you're running on reserve. STA 22 is the accurate score across the full duration window. Similarly, the Regen stat is another confusing metric for those who don't pay attention to specific nutrient profiles and purely focus on the taste and short-term satiety. Regen scores a consumable's ability to support a player's repair cycle through protein quality and the amino acid profile, as that triggers the muscle protein synthesis passive buff. Ramen has 8 grams of protein per full package. That sounds like it should generate a meaningful Regen proc. Then you open the amino acid breakdown in the inspection menu and find out that ramen is critically short on leucine. Your build needs approximately 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine to fire the repair ability. Ramen provides 0.4 grams. This item has a sub 20% proc rate on the single most important recovery mechanic in the game. If you're equipping ramen as your post-session recovery consumable, the actual muscle building phase of recovery is sitting in the repair queue, failing to be fully processed. Now moving to defense stats. Ramen is a glass cannon consumable when run on its own, dealing huge amounts of damage to the player whilst providing little defensive buffs in return. Defense scores the item's antioxidant content, vitamin density, and the passive bonuses it contributes to your immune system. Ramen contributes essentially none of these. The noodle is stripped down refined wheat, a base material item with no passive bonuses. The flavor packet contributes sodium, engineered flavor compounds, and preservatives. There is no vitamin C, no vitamin A, no vitamin D, no polyphenols, no antioxidants, 0 defensive passives. A score of 8 is actually being generous. Every session you slot ramen into your loadout is a session your build ran the encounter with no armor active. Other players would call you brainless. Speaking of which, Ramen's brain buffs top out at 15, and because of the AGI debuff and calorie content, ramen poses a split stat problem that the number alone doesn't explain. Short term, within the first 20 minutes of equipping this item, the brain buff is real. MSG activates glutamate pathways and generates a temporary mood and focus boost. If you scored the item at the 10-minute mark, brain would be around 55. The long-term stats tell a different story. 0 omega-3s, 0 choline, 0 B12. These are the 3 primary inputs for sustained cognitive function in your build. The glycemic crash at 45 minutes actively impairs cognition, and chronic high sodium builds, running 1,500 plus milligrams of sodium daily, show measurable reductions in cerebral blood flow over 6 to 12 months. The short-term calorie buff expires. The debuff compounds. 15 is the net score across a full playthrough. Last one, the gut stat. Here's what most players don't understand about this stat. The gut system is not a side mechanic. It's the server your entire build runs on. Your gut microbiome hosts somewhere between 38 and 100 trillion individual microorganisms, and they're not passengers. They regulate your immune response, your hormonal balance, your mood, your metabolism, and your cognitive function. Roughly 70% of your immune system is processed and housed in the gut. The microbiome communicates directly with your brain via the vagus nerve, a dedicated neural channel that runs gut to brain in real time. Damage the server and every single stat on this sheet degrades with it. Degraded gut barrier integrity means the wall between your gut contents and your bloodstream becomes permeable. Bacterial toxins and inflammatory compounds that should stay contained start leaking into circulation. Gut score, 12 out of 100. 9 stats. Analysis complete. Let's see where this item sits in the tier list. F tier. That's the current status of one of the most equipped budget consumables on the Earth server. But here's what makes this item interesting. The noodle is not the primary problem. The flavor packet is where 80% of the hook mechanic lives, contains most of the toxic compounds, and the majority of the sodium load. Because of this, we can customize different mod packs for the ramen loadout that can optimize this meal for beginners such as yourself. So let's dive into the patch notes. Patch 1.0, 1 soft boiled egg, taking Regen from 18 to 42. For cost per stat gain, this is one of the most efficient upgrades available in the entire food item database. A whole egg carries all 9 essential amino acids in ratios your body can actually absorb. The leucine content, combined with the protein already in the ramen, gets you close enough to the synthesis threshold that the Regen passive actually starts firing. The yolk grants vitamin D, 70 milligrams of choline as a direct brain passive, and B12 for nervous system maintenance. Brain jumps 23 points on this patch alone. Patch 2.0, frozen spinach, 30 seconds, 1 handful. Defense stats go from 22 to 45. You've just equipped armor. The item that was running 0 defensive buffs now boasts vitamin K, vitamin vitamin C, iron, and folate to fight chronic debuffs and nutrient absorption ability. The more significant upgrade, gut climbs from 12 to 35 with this patch, as spinach carries prebiotic fiber, the specific substrate your beneficial bacterial colonies feed on. It won't restore a degraded server to full capacity overnight, but it shifts the operating environment from hostile conditions to something the colonies can actually work with. 23-point server upgrade, 1 frozen vegetable. Patch 3.0, swap the water for bone broth. Gut health climbs another 23 points. Glycine in the broth supports the integrity of your gut barrier lining, directly addressing the permeability issue flagged in the gut analysis. Regen reaches 65 in this patch, as collagen peptides, glycine, and proline are the direct structural materials for connective tissue repair that the base item was completely missing. Combine patches 2 and 3 and you've taken the gut server from 12% capacity to 58%. Without touching the noodle, without changing the cook time, the server that was failing is now functional. Patch 4.0, half the flavor packet. This is the highest damage reduction available for 0 additional gold cost. Sodium drops from 1,520 milligrams to approximately 760, from 66% of your daily cap to 33%. Toxicity loses 27 points in a single move because cutting the packet halves the preservative dose, the phosphate load, and the oxidized compound concentration simultaneously. Hook drops 26 points. The engineered flavor intensity weakens substantially when the sodium load is halved. You've just dismantled 2 of the 3 hook mechanics in one step. Base loadout, F tier. Fully patched loadout, C tier. Same noodles, same 4-minute cook time. Roughly 60 cents more per dish, and the build went from F tier to C tier. The C tier health ratings does not make ramen a perfect consumable, and far from a viable, consistent pick long term. AGI is still elevated. Refined wheat without major fiber reinforcement will still spike your blood sugar faster than whole grain alternatives. The hook passive is weakened, but not removed. However, every stat that determines your long-term health trajectory has moved in the right direction. Complete protein enables your regen passive to tick away in the background. Your gut microbiome is online and active. Defense stats have improved dramatically, and you're no longer running damage over time passives at full dose every session, making ramen post-patch a decent situational pick in the current meta. Did you like this video? If you want to stay up to date with the latest patch notes and consumable metas, please like and subscribe, and tell me the highest rated consumable in your loadout in the comments. I mean that first pick consumable you run in your loadout at least twice a week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.